Joining us right now from 690 TSN in Montreal, hide the women and children, put away the sharp instruments, the one, the only, Tony Marinaro joins us. Tony, welcome.
Anthony, thanks for having me on.
Pleasure is all mine, Tony. Let's dissect this home and home with Mexico. I'm a realist. You're a realist. We didn't expect to win in either one. But let's talk about Friday night first and foremost. I truly believed in my heart of hearts with that record crowd and 3/4 of it being Canadian supporters that at least a draw we would come away with. And the guys, to be honest, really were flat all game long. Talk about it, Tony.
Well, what I liked was the courage that they actually moved forward in that game and they took chances. What I didn't like was the tactics, the system, the intelligence, because if they thought that they could open up and take chances and give openings against a team like Mexico, a top 16 national team in the world, they clearly didn't make the right decision. I mean, let's be honest. And I know that there was a lot of optimism around the camp. I was hearing that the guys were feeling good about themselves. They looked at the team on paper. They saw some sexy names there. They liked the lineup that they were fielding. But the reality was, exactly what we saw on Friday. So, what am I getting at, Anthony, is that, we have to take baby steps. And that is, we have to open up against teams that we'll do okay against opening up. But you can't open up against soccer nations like Mexico. Clearly they didn't yesterday. But if we go back to Friday's game, they opened up so much. They gave Mexico so many chances. And they're lucky that Mexico only scored 3. Because, let's be honest, they could have actually scored 5 in that game, maybe 6.
And thank goodness.
What does that call for, Anthony? Pardon me. That calls for, let's change the way we play. If you play a soccer power like Mexico, and what we have going for us is that we're big and we're strong and we're fast and we're physical, well then hold back, defend, master the art of defending, because we don't create skilled players in this country to be able to attack. We don't create, the number 10s. We don't create the goal scorers of this world. So master the art of defending and then master the art of counterattack. It's our only chance. And they didn't do it.
You're bang on, Tony. And the way that Milan Borjan was standing on his head and playing these 2 games was unbelievable, unreal. Man of the match for both games that he played in until he went out injured. And your point is correct. They should have parked the bus. They should have played Catenaccio, because with a guy that was playing the way he was, Milan Borjan, you would, at minimum, should have come away with a draw in Vancouver, and you didn't, especially in front of a record crowd. That's what bugs me the most. Let's talk about last night. I got to tell you, I went to sleep okay. I thought the team played with some heart, with some guts, with some passion. And look, it was a PK after I watched it again and again. It was a PK, that's fine. The second goal was world class and a brain lock by the defenders. So I'm actually okay with last night. You?
Well, look, I'm okay because Canada lost by a score of 2-0, and we've seen Canada go into Honduras and give up 8. We've seen Canada have some very embarrassing moments on the field, so we expected the worst at the Azteca, and we didn't get the worst. It was a respectable loss, but in the end, a loss is a loss. What I liked is they didn't have a complex. They talk about the Azteca being a hostile atmosphere. Guys get out there, and all of a sudden, they can't do anything. They can't move, and they don't know how to react, and there's altitude, and the game ends up out of reach in a hurry. But look at the expectations. That Mexico was booed off the field last night at the Azteca because for their fans and their supporters, a 2-0 win over Canada is not enough. They wanted more than that. You and I are happy with a 2-0 loss, and that's where the problem starts. I mean, we have to stop being happy with losing respectably. We have to start demanding results. And, when I went to bed last night, I wasn't in a good mood. I'm going to tell you why, even though they lost only 2-0. I wasn't in a good mood because this team, in my opinion, is not going to make it to the next round. They're not going to make it to the Hex. They have to pull out 2 results against El Salvador at home and in Honduras. Hope that some of the results go their way in the other games. Ultimately, it might come down to the game in Honduras. And to tell you the truth, I know it's a long ways away. It's in September. But if I take a look at some of the player selections, I take a look at the strategy, I take a look at the way we actually played the game, and I know that these opponents are not going to be Mexico, I'm not overly optimistic. I don't remember when was the last time our Canadians men's national team gave me a result that I was proud of. I have to go back a while.
Yeah, you echo the sentiments of the CSA president, Victor Montagliani. We have to stop making excuses. We have to start talking a different talk, walking a different walk, and start taking responsibility for losses and start taking the right direction in this country. That's one. Two, I don't know about you, Tony, but you know what? I think more of the spotlight has to be thrown on head coach Benito Floro. I believe the honeymoon is over for this guy, and I'll tell you why. Daniil Henry, God bless him. I have a lot of time for him. I think he's going to be a good international player. But he was playing in the position he's not comfortable with. That's one. Two, you see that he's struggling. Make a change. That's one there. The other point is you played with Kyle Lauren up front, alone. You gave him no support. The guy is a youngster that is starting to learn the international game. He needed support, and you didn't provide that. I think the spotlight has to go on Benito Floro as well, Tony.
Well, I agree with you with Daniel Henry, especially since you take a look at David Edgar's resume. 28 years old. I mean, the guy is at a point in his life where you would think that he's at his peak. He plays in England. He's got experience. He can play a central defense role. He can play either back position. He can play in a central defensive midfield role. I mean, the guy's a very, very versatile player. I agree with you there. I also don't think that Tosin Ricketts should be a starter for this national team because, with all due respect to him, he hasn't shown me that he's a soccer player. What he has shown me is that he can kick a ball in a straight line and run the 100-meter dash probably faster than anyone else. But that's not soccer. It's not soccer. And see, that's where it starts. We have to stop. I take a look at some of these players, and they have camps for U15 and U17 and U20. I spoke with former Canadian men's national team player Sandro Grande earlier this morning. He played 12 games for the national team. Listen to this. Here's a guy that in his career played professionally in Europe, and was part of a Brescia organization that had on their team at that time a Roberto Baggio, a Luca Toni, a Pep Guardiola, an Andrea Pirlo, right? He's with Brescia, but prior to that, in his youth, he went to Canada U15, he was cut. He went to U17, he was cut. He went to U20, he was cut. Now, why was he cut? He was cut because he wasn't as big, he wasn't as strong, and he wasn't as fast. But yet he got to Europe, and he ended up playing professionally, and he ended up playing on a team with stars. And although he didn't play, it's still a huge accomplishment to actually sit on the bench for one of those teams. So I think, Anthony, we have to take a look at also the selection process. We have to do it differently. Take a look at Mexico. They weren't as big as the Canadian players. They weren't as strong as the Canadian players. They weren't as fast as the Canadian players. But they played 2 games versus Canada in 5 nights. They won both. They scored 5. Canada scored 0. And, we're lucky they didn't score 10.
You're bang on again, Tony. The other thing we need to look at is this. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that Mexico is a top 12 nation in the world right now. I'll go and battle anyone back and forth that I believe they're top 12 in the world. They have one of the biggest and most important leagues right now exploding. I was talking to a lot of agents yesterday and some coaches today. The Mexican league right now is pouring millions of dollars in bringing world-class players to play in there. That's an advantage they have. Here in Canada, look, God bless the Montreal Impact, Joey Saputo, God bless TFC and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment and Leonard Uzi and the Whitecaps. But it is time, once and for all, we get our own league coast to coast like we did back in the Canadian Soccer League and give Canadian players and coaches a chance, Tony. Yes or no?
Yes, but it should not be the first thing on the list, and I'm going to tell you why. Anthony, we have our own league. If we come up with it, that's fantastic. It's not going to be Europe, and it's not going to be the MLS. So it'll be where the third-tier players play. That's fine, because we have third-tier players, and they need to play. I understand all of that. But, Anthony, if the tree grows crooked, it's always going to stay crooked. So what am I saying by that? You can take some Canadian players at 20, 21, 22, 23 years of age, and you can make them play in this new Canadian league that we all want to form. But at the end of the day, all those bad habits that they picked up from the grassroots level that were never corrected, they take it into the Canadian league, and they apply it there, and they never make the necessary corrections. So what do we have to do? We have to restructure our grassroots level. We have to change the way we think the game. We have to change the way we play the game. We have to change the way we practice the game. And we have to change the way we develop these players in the game. And as a soccer dad who's got two boys that play, you know, I'm part of that, so I know it. I see it, and I see it all the time. What do? We sign up our kids at the age of 5. They have no idea how to play soccer. We teach them drills on the field, volunteer parents do, passing drills and dribbling drills and going around cones and passing from one player to the other. And we do that for 15 minutes, and then it breaks out into this 45-minute game between 5-on-5. At that age in Europe, what they're doing instead is they have soccer school. You show up and we teach you how to play the game for an hour, and maybe in the last 10 minutes we'll take out a few cones, we'll use them as a net, we'll play 3-on-3, and we'll make you play for 5 or 10 minutes. They teach you how to play the game first, and then you actually play the game. No, we don't do it that way here. We hardly teach you how to play the game, and when we do teach you how to play the game, it's volunteer parents that teach you, and then it breaks out into this 45 or 50-minute game that everyone's yelling to kick, to go far, to run fast, and to shoot, and to score. It's wrong. And then we take our best coaches, and we put them at the ages of 15, 16, and 17 years of age, because we have this obsession with qualifying for the highest level of soccer that we have here. I can talk about Quebec, which is AAA, and then we put this huge emphasis on staying on it. So what happens when we're thinking results-oriented? Number one, you never pass the ball back. Oh, no, you can't do that, because if you pass the ball back and the player ends up missing it, then another player ends up going on a breakaway, they end up scoring. So no, there's no passing back. It's only direct. It's only forward. It's only north. It's only kick, and it's only run. And then when you get into that highest league, you have to still continue to do those things because you don't want to get relegated. It's wrong.
You're bang on. And this is why I'm sick and tired of the $2 medals, the $2 trophies that are given out to all these kids all over Canada, entering these tournaments, 4 or 5 games on a Saturday, 3 or 4 games on a Sunday, and we're not learning and we're not developing on and on. I'm a parent of 2 boys. One is in his last year. I've seen it all, Tony, and I'm tired of it, and I'm sick and tired of it. Lastly is this, Tony. I'm going to give you the keys to the mansion of Canadian soccer. I'm going to give you the keys to 3 wishes. What would you do right now if I give you these 3 wishes that could really make a substantial change in the landscape of Canadian soccer for the better?
Okay, in no particular order, I would get former players, and I'd even go out. You know, Anthony, do you know that they pay academy coaches in Europe? A lot of these teams don't have a budget. They pay them 800-900 euros a month. I would get some of those coaches over here. I would get former players involved in soccer. And how would I get them involved in soccer and keep them in soccer? I would pay them. I would pay the coaches. Let's have the best coaches at the young ages. Let's have coaches coming in from European academies, from European backgrounds, from South American backgrounds, from soccer backgrounds, and let's pay them. That's one of the things that I would do. Number 2, I would stop with all these tournaments and stop with all these stats. That will only come at a later age. But I would take the best players, have to play with the best players, and they have to train with the best players and practice with the best players. I take a look at this league system, Anthony. Think about it for a second. It's a 12-team league at the club level. You have 4 very good teams, you have 4 good teams, you have 4 weak teams. You take a look at every team. They have 4 very good players, they have 8 good players, and they have 4 weak players. How can you get better in that system and in that environment? So, what am I doing? I'm bringing in former players and I'm bringing in great coaches and I'm paying them. Number 2, I'm getting out of this club system where there's so much disparity that no one gets better in that system. Only the weaker players get better and the better players actually get stagnant or regress. And number 3, I'm bringing in other academies and I'm allowing clubs to affiliate with other academies. God bless Vancouver, God bless Toronto, and God bless the Montreal Impact. They're doing something great, Anthony. They have their respective academies, and they pump a lot of money in it. But they choose 15, 16 players per group age. When you have 200, 300, 400 players that are at that level, what happens when only 16 players make it? They got to go back to their clubs and get fought by their clubs? We know that with our structure, that the club system is failing us. So at that point, how can we get any better? But if we affiliate with academies and we get other academies that come in to give these kids an opportunity to work with some of the other, to work with the professional academies and work as a feeder system where once this kid gets cut or doesn't go to a trial at all, he's being developed by another academy, and then we can send him on and then we can get him ready. Those are the three things that I'm doing, getting former players involved and coaches with soccer backgrounds, and I'm paying them. I'm saying forget about it to the club system where I'm only going to enter second division teams and not first division teams, and I'm getting affiliations or other academies to come in and help develop these players so these players are developing the way they should. Those are the three things I'm doing, Anthony.
Tony, you're a breath of fresh air. You're a proud Canadian. You're passionate and unbelievable the way you care about the game. It's outstanding to hear a guy like you care so much. You don't sugarcoat it, and we really appreciate it.
I appreciate all that, but guess what? You have a microphone, I have a microphone. You say the real things, I say the real things, but it's now time that we all act. Talk is cheap. What are we going to do about it? We have a system that's flawed. It's not working. What are we going to do about it? And personally, I'm all ears to join forces with other people to see what we can do to make it better.
Well, you know what? I might take you up on that invitation because people have asked me for the last number of years, Anthony, get a town hall meeting together here in Ontario and we'll bring all the biggest and best names in Ontario and across this country. So we put all the cards on the table, we start working together, and we put this country back where it needs to be in the World Cup where they were many, many years ago. Tony Marinaro.
If you want to join hands with me and we put together a soccer summit, and we get some of the brighter soccer minds in this country that have great ideas and want change and are willing to do something about it, well, then you know what? Maybe we'll just do something. We'll get together and we'll have this soccer summit. We'll come up with the ideas and we'll see if we can apply everything we come up with that makes sense.
Count me in, baby. I'm all in. Tony, outstanding. Count me in, my friend. You can count me in. Tony, 690 TSN, we really appreciate you making time. God bless and continue supporting Canada. And we really, again, appreciate you making time, my friend.
Thank you, Anthony.
Tony Marinaro of 690 TSN. He's the real deal. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He's not politically correct. He's not the guy that's going to come and pat you on the back when he knows it's not the truth and it's not the right thing to do in the game. That's why I love the guy. That's why I listen to him from here in Toronto, because he's not your regular Smith and Jones that we've always heard in the years past that, toe the line, toe the regular line. I don't want to toe the line. I'm sick and tired of towing the line. It's guys like him we need to change the game once and for all, because I care about Canada. He cares about Canada. I could care less about Italy. I've said this a million times. How many times I talk to guys that are Portuguese, German, Irish, Spanish, African, Jamaican, that all they care about is those countries. And they're living here in Canada, paying their taxes here. Their kids were born here. But I'm going to support these countries. Why? Support Canada. Even though we know that they're struggling and they're not very good right now. Maybe if we all put our brains together, maybe if we all put our cards on the table, maybe if we all put our differences aside, maybe we can get Canada to the World Cup once and for all. Come on.